We all went to school. We learned algebra. We learned history. But what about all the other stuff? The lessons that were never actually on the syllabus. I'm talking about those unwritten rules that kind of shape how we see the world and, well, our place in it.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Why did school teach us to jump up when a bell rings? Or to wait in line? Or to always, always raise your hand before you speak? None of that was in a textbook, right? And yet, we all learned it. It's like this powerful, invisible force was at play in our education.
Well, it turns out there's a name for this whole invisible architecture of schooling. Sociologists actually call it the hidden curriculum. And believe me, it is one of the most powerful forces shaping our entire educational experience.
So yeah, this unwritten rulebook finally got a name back in 1968. An educator named Philip W. Jackson called it the hidden curriculum. And his whole point was that this is a form of what he called secondary socialization. It's basically teaching us how to act and what to care about inside big institutions. And it does all of this without a single formal lesson.
Okay, so this table really breaks it down. Look at the contrast here. The formal curriculum, that's the stuff you expect. Knowledge from textbooks, skills you're supposed to master. But the hidden one, that comes from, well, everywhere else. Teacher interactions, how discipline works, even how things are graded. And you're not evaluated with an exam, you're evaluated on things like obedience, how resilient you are, and just fitting into the system.
And this right here is where we get to the central debate. Is this whole hidden rulebook a good thing, like a necessary tool that gets us ready for the real world? Or is it something a little more sinister, a subtle engine that just reinforces social inequality? Sociologists are totally split on this, and there are two major theories battling it out. All right, so let's dig into the first perspective. This is the functionalist view. And from this angle, the hidden curriculum isn't some accident or a mistake. Nope. They see it as absolutely essential for creating a society that actually works and a workforce that's ready to go. So functionalists would say that schools have to teach these traits. Things like showing up on time, respecting authority, meeting deadlines and expectations. These aren't just random school rules. They're the fundamental skills you're going to need to hold down a job and just be a part of a complex society. And all that competition for grades, they see that as direct training for the competition you'll face in the marketplace. But even if you're on board with this view, there's a bit of a catch. This quote here really nails it. Philip Jackson, the guy who coined the term, talked about the need to manage crowds of students. And that administrative reality, just keeping order, often leads to a system that values compliance way more than originality. The need for order kind of becomes a moral lesson in just fitting in. Okay, but what if this system isn't just about making good little workers? This is where the critical theorists come in. And they argue the hidden curriculum has a much, much darker purpose: to keep the existing social hierarchies exactly as they are. A huge idea for this viewpoint is something called the correspondence principle. It's a Marxist theory, and it basically says that the way school is structured perfectly mirrors the capitalist workplace. Think about it. The teacher is the boss, the students are the workers, and grades are like your wages. And the ultimate lesson you learn: get used to your place in the hierarchy and learn to work for rewards that someone else gives you. Then, the French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu added this other really crucial layer to the argument with his idea of cultural capital. What is that? Well, it's all the unspoken social assets. The way you talk, your manners, how you think, the kids from more privileged families just kind of inherit. And the problem is, schools, often without even realizing it, value and reward this specific kind of capital, which means some students get a massive head start from the moment they walk in the door. So here's how this whole thing works. It's almost like a form of social laundering. A student comes into school with all this inherited cultural capital. The school system, again, probably not even consciously, rewards them for it. And then that student's success is seen as pure merit, like they're just naturally smarter or harder working. And just like that, a social advantage gets magically transformed into what looks like individual achievement. And the cycle repeats, reinforcing the class structure for another generation. So this whole system isn't just about big social structures. It has a profound effect on the individual student, too. It gets right down into their heads, shaping their motivation to learn, and even their psychological well-being. Think about this. School has a funny way of shifting our motivation. We might start with intrinsic motivation, a genuine love of learning, real curiosity. But it often pushes us toward extrinsic motivation, where the only goal is getting the grade. And when you're driven by curiosity, you get deep learning. But when the focus is just on scores and rankings, you end up with surface learning, a lot of anxiety, and you start avoiding any challenges where you might actually fail.
And the consequences of this are, well, pretty significant. All that constant pressure and competition that the hidden curriculum encourages, it leads directly to more stress, more anxiety, and a real fear of failure for students. This laser focus on achievement can totally come at the cost of genuine learning, not to mention mental well-being.
Okay, so if this system has all these downsides, what do we do about it? Is there a solution? Well, it all starts with making these invisible rules visible. We have to intentionally design a learning environment that's way more equitable.
A good place to start is by identifying what's called the hidden academic curriculum. We're talking about all the practical skills that schools just assume everyone knows. Things like how to write a proper email to a professor, or how to actually use their office hours, or what does a teacher even mean when they say analyze a text? For first-generation students, especially, not having this insider knowledge can be a huge, huge barrier.
So one way educators can fight this is by creating what's called an equitable syllabus. And that just means being super explicit about everything. Tell students exactly how to address you. Explain why office hours are useful. Don't just list the times. Be totally transparent about how you grade. When you do this, the syllabus stops being just a rule book and it becomes a real roadmap for success for every student.
Look, at the end of the day, we're probably never going to get rid of the hidden curriculum entirely. The school environment is always going to teach unspoken lessons. So the goal has to be something else. It's about shifting from this passive, often unfair transmission of values to the deliberate, careful, and intentional management of the values we actually want to teach.
And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. What if we took every single unwritten rule of our education system, every norm, every value, every tiny expectation, and we wrote them all down for everyone to see? If we made the entire hidden curriculum explicit, what would that list tell us about the kind of society we're really trying to build?